Blessings, BookTube. I'm doing a Tag Tuesday here from my condo here in Bangkok, where I still am for at least another month. And I'm missing my headphones. I'm trying out a new microphone that's a little less dramatic and theatrical than the armed one. That was also very reminiscent of my radio days, but I liked having my earphones. It sort of makes it hides how chubby my face is, but here we are. Okay, so this is one of my mashups where I take a bunch of cherry-picked questions from several old BookTube tags. The theme of this one is sort of how do I get my books, which is one of the questions that people asked in my 100 subscriber video. So basically, I read a lot about around what's available rather than searching out exactly what I want and having a list and that sort of stuff like a lot of y'all do. And that is just a function of my living in countries where English books are not always available, my usually living on a very reduced income, and things of that nature. But I kind of like it also as a sort of gesture of faith in the universe that it will deliver me interesting books. And luckily I am interested in almost everything, so that I'm not too picky about what I read. So here we go. So the first one is from a called the library tag. And this was originated with BookBuds. So the question I chose from this one is, did I go to story time at the library as a kid? There are two instances I'd like to talk about in terms of the library. One is when I was a little kid and my mom would take us to the York Public Library downtown pretty much every week, I think, and when we would go to Maple Donuts. And she also worked downtown at the York Little Theater. They had a fabulous program then for single mothers instead of, just giving you crap jobs. They actually had nice professional jobs, and so they got my mom one at the library doing their public relations and things of that nature. And so we were promoting what's his name? Not Robin Hood, Peter Pan. We were promoting Peter Pan, and the actress couldn't come, so my mom dressed in the tights and everything like Peter Pan. And James and I got to go to the costumes, and we were dressed as Lost Boys, and we were giving out balloons and stuff at the reading at the library. So that was a very fun memory. And if my brother sees this, if you remember, you can scan me one of the photos and send it along. I'll use it as the thumbnail for this video. So another time is years later. Now I'm an adult, and I haven't been in a child's section of a library in a long, long, long time. But I'm getting books we set up a summer camp in Columbia, South Carolina. What was the word we used to use? I've forgotten. Anyway, we received refugees from Somali Bantu refugees. About 100 families, or 100 people total. 50 families, no, more than family would be bigger than that. But 100 families, a lot of people. Yeah, that makes sense because the kids camp was big. So we had an after school program for them, of course, through the year, and then we decided to do a summer camp for them. And so for the summer camp, I was stocking up on books. And I just had the best time. And I discovered some great ones. And my favorite new kids book that I don't think was available when I was a kid, because I think I would have remembered it, is called Tacky the Penguin. He wears a Hawaiian shirt. He's hilarious. He gets into all kinds of misadventures, and he's just, he's a very different kind of penguin. So Tacky the Penguin, check it out. A lot of fun. Okay, the next is from Bring Browsing Back Tag. This was originated with the Roving Reader. And two questions I chose from this. One is about the magic of discovery. So a book that, I found through browsing that I might not have discovered otherwise. So another question I got on the 100 subs was about Spanish books that I liked. And I mentioned this series, Barco de Vapor, that I found years later when I was studying Spanish. Never heard of this series. Very, very, very big series for Spanish kids growing up, all different ages. It was color coded by age, up to YA. And I bought a few and donated them to the library in the school where I was teaching in Honduras. But it's amazing because, first of all, it's very difficult to find any books in Honduras. There aren't really bookstores. There's like, what would you call them? Stationery stores, and they have like a few books each. But I found this stall at this market in a random town, not a big town, in Honduras, that had all kinds of things. It had tons of like dumb travel books, sort of thriller books that she would just basically give to me because nobody was going to read them in English. And then I would buy a few things in English that she happened to have to give her money. And then about half of my money, again, I would spend on books for the kids, for the library. So I'd buy these Barco de Vapor books. I would never have found them if I just hadn't stumbled upon them in this market. As a matter of fact, I went back to that town because the day I was there was not the market day, and so that stall was closed. And I said, I have to come back to this town on market day and see what's in this bookstall, and I'm so glad I did. And then I arranged to go pretty every month. I would try to get to that town. Barco de Vapor books I found through Fate, through browsing. And the other question is expanding world or open to change. So different perspectives or a book that changed my day-to-day reality. I would say Julia Cameron's Artist's Way. Maybe it's cheating to pick a workbook, but it's a bit more than a workbook because it's really a whole philosophy as well. And if you haven't done it, it's a lot of fun if you're any kind of a creator at all. Even if you're not, it just is full of fun exercises, and take yourself on an artist date and get silly things to play with and jog your creativity. And yeah, I really enjoyed that Artist's Way. I did it when I was staying with my mom one time because she had it, and I'd recommend it. It's Julia Cameron's Artist's Way. She did a follow-up one that was also good, but I'd stick with the Artist's Way if I were you. Okay, next tag is recycling books tag. Originated with Rich and Son Reads. Rich and Son Reads. And this one is what's a very thin or small book. The small book that I most remember was from when I was growing up. My mom had these. She loved gnomes for some reason. Well, she loves gardens. And we had the little tiny gnome book, and the book itself was tiny. In fact, there were 3 of them, I think, in a little box, and they were so little. Even when I was a little kid, they were little. They were very, very cute. Now, the other question that I chose from this one is a book that I've reread the most. And again, it would probably be something from youth, right? Because I don't reread much as an adult. Probably Where the Sidewalk Ends, I would say. I read it a lot as a kid, as a teen, as a college kid, as a teacher, and every once in a while as an adult, if I can find it, if I'm depressed. It's good fun. Or any of the Shel Silversteins. Probably Where the Sidewalk Ends. Okay. Next tag is the Nosy Librarian tag. This one originated with Stripped Core Lit, and this is I'll write it down in the notes if I got it wrong, I'm sure. This one is about the most influential library in my life. Probably the National Library of France, which is in the Centre National de Beaubourg, which is that big, atrocious looking building in the middle of Paris, in the middle of old Paris, with all of its insides on the out, with all the ducts and tubes and all kinds of wires and stuff. And it's painted all gaudy colors. You either love it or you hate it. I'm not a lover of it, but I love the inside because on top of housing Contemporary Art Museum and just endless, always cultural events, plus out front is where you go to see the best street theater in Paris, people with swords and all kinds of stuff, just on any given Monday. And I would go there all the time, especially when I first arrived in Paris, and I was researching a presentation that I had to do on Ionesco's Cantatrice show, Bald Soprano. And I went to the Beaubourg, to the National Library, and it was one of those moments when I would say, like, theater of the absurd, this is related to existentialism. I'm like, oh, what's existentialism? Go look up existentialism. This is related to phenomenology. What's phenomenology? Go look up phenomenology. I would just have stacks and stacks of books moving around the library from subject to subject. It would be like walking around inside the World Wide Web, if you could imagine something like that. It was just one of those vivid moments that I can really remember, just the expansion of the web of knowledge and all the things that there were to learn, and I was so excited to learn it all. So that moment stands out. Another, what would be the title of my biography? Sadly, at this moment, it would be Non Salvator Ambulando. So I used to put out a newsletter for the Return Peace Corps volunteer group for South Carolina that I ended up sort of helping to run for a while. And I called it Solvitur Ambulando, which is just, Latin for it is solved in walking or going around, right? The peripatetic philosophers. But these days I'm feeling like I'm not solving anything by all this moving all around, so that's why it would be Non Salvator Ambulando right now. If I die now, that's the title of my biography, but it won't be by the end. Okay. And now there's all kinds of interesting questions on this one about your relationship with the police and the secrets you want to keep. I'm not going to touch any of that. But I will talk about fears, but I'll do it through books. So I was trying to think, what is probably the scariest book I've ever read? And actually, it's not obscure. It's it probably if you're if you went to school in the States or England probably as well, or any English-speaking country, perhaps, and that is Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Flies. Really terrified me. First of all, you have to know that we moved schools almost every year. I was a bookish hippie kid. And, before I got into sports, nobody sort of knew that I was sort of, I wasn't as big and scary as I look now, right? I was a weedy little kid. And no one feared me, and I was bullied mercilessly everywhere, every school pretty much, rural, urban, from the Bronx, to the swamps of Florida, and passing through probably the worst would be the sort of suburban rich kids. But anyway, just the idea that I knew that popularity was driven by sort of meanness and bad values, and if that ended up being the actual values of adult society, I knew I didn't want any part of that world. And it's an open question with all the wars we have going on right now and other things, whether that's not truly the case. But Lord of the Rings is definitely a representation of that, both as larger society, but also as very much the microcosm of young boys that I was surrounded by at that exact moment that I was reading it. It was terrifying to me, and still is. I don't like it. I can't read it. I love Golding. I've read other stuff by him, Pitcher Martin, The Spire. What was I listening to a video just the other day? The Inheritors. Anyway, Lord of the Flies, terrifying. Okay, and the last one here, the last tag is from at Books I'm Not Reading. It's used bookstore tag. And for this one, I chose my favorite bookstore. My favorite used bookstore is, I used to be able to love recommending various places like Austin, Let's Jump the Shark, or Albuquerque that used to be quirky. But unfortunately, I can't really recommend Albuquerque to folks anymore, except maybe for the Balloon Festival. And certainly visit, but maybe base yourself in Gallup instead. But anyway, the best of Albuquerque is Frontier Diner. Frontier Diner right across from the gateway to UNM, the university. And it's famous, and it's not open all night anymore, but it was always open all night, and tons of writers have written there, and it appears in works by Ayala and Hillerman, and all kinds of authors. Anyway, right around the corner from there by the post office is Laura's Books. That's my favorite bookstore. I will try to put something down in the notes to drive you to her. Very quirky, one-person, old bookstore. Just piles and piles of books of all sorts. And it's got all the things you need to have. It's got the bargain cart out front, as well as the cardboard box of free books that stays out there all night for whoever to take. Where I got all those amazing dime novels of sci-fi and mystery during COVID. But yeah, I always wish I had more money to support people like that. But Laura's Bookstore in Albuquerque, great place. All right, and then the other question, this is great, is with which booktuber would I like to visit a used bookstore, and in which city? Well, I was thinking more of library than bookstore. And but either way, I want to go with Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures because I'm supposed to be reading Turkish literature with her this year, and I've not got off to a great start. But we could go and buy books in the bookstores. But I'd also love to visit with her. I'm sure. I'm not sure if she's from Istanbul, but I'm sure they must have amazing libraries. I mean, the Byzantine. They had to have as much as the Vatican's, right? Famous vaults of all kinds of great books throughout history. And then, modern Istanbul as well, fascinating place. So yeah, I'd love to go with Berna around and get some books. That would be really fun. All right, so there you go. That's the tag. The tags. I will try to think who I think would be good for this one. But I hope you like me throwing these tags together like this. Hope anybody who originated these tags isn't offended at my cherry picking them or dragging them up out of the archives. So far, I haven't had any complaints by any of them that I've done, so I'm guessing that it's okay to go on with this. And there you go. So I invite you with Rumi to sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment.